Windsurf plus IO, how OpenAI is building full-stack AI from inference to interface. There's a reason this one stops you in your tracks. A generative AI lab with no commercial hardware lineage just bought IO, an AI device startup co-founded by Jony Ive and Sam Altman, for a staggering $6.5 billion US. The acquisition, structured entirely in OpenAI stock, folds Ive's team and design vision fully into the company, formalizing a partnership that had already begun under the radar. OpenAI previously owned 23% of IO. At first glance, it reads like tech theater. OpenAI, flush with Microsoft's money and riding the ChatGPT hype wave, bringing in Apple's former design chief to engineer its iPhone moment. But dig deeper, and the strategic stakes for enterprise decision-makers become clearer. This isn't about nostalgia or aesthetics. It's about who controls the next platform. The shift underway is one of intimacy and control. In a world rapidly reoriented by ambient AI, the battle is no longer limited to cloud models or enterprise APIs. It's about touchpoints, attention, ubiquity. With this move, OpenAI has signaled its intention to challenge Apple, Google, Meta, and even Microsoft, not just on intelligence, but on the interfaces through which AI is summoned, shaped, and felt. Markets got the message. Apple stock dipped nearly 2% following the announcement, reflecting a rare moment of competitive discomfort from Cupertino. For CIOs, CTOs, and digital experience leaders, this brings a new layer of complexity. Devices that serve as thin clients to AI models may soon demand enterprise integration, identity management, and zero-trust governance, well before policies or platforms are ready. This marks the moment OpenAI stops being just a lab or API partner and starts becoming a platform company with its own form factor, emotional signature, and physical stake in the world you operate. Greyhound standpoint. This isn't just another acquisition. It's a signal that enterprise control, capability, and trust are shifting. The lines between personal devices and enterprise architecture are about to blur, and OpenAI wants to be the lens through which we see the future. We at Greyhound Research believe this move forces enterprise leaders to rethink where the next interface disruption comes from, and whether your existing AI plans account for an AI that shows up in hardware, not just the cloud. Strategic intent, owning the stack, from Windsurf to the Ive interface. On the surface, OpenAI's $6.5 billion US acquisition of IO, the AI device startup co-founded by Jony Ive and Sam Altman, might look like a design-led indulgence, a trophy acquisition meant to position the lab alongside Apple in the pantheon of design-first innovators. But that's a distraction. The real story lies in what this move completes, a full-stack AI strategy that now spans model, memory, and medium. IO was originally formed as a skunkworks initiative in partnership with Ive's design firm Lovefrom, structured to explore next-gen AI-native hardware under deep design stewardship. Prior to this acquisition, OpenAI already held a 23% stake in the venture, signaling long-standing strategic intent, not opportunistic expansion. With the Windsurf acquisition, OpenAI secured control of its inference layer, freeing itself from over-reliance on Microsoft's Azure and enabling tighter integration of compute, context, and cost governance. Windsurf was about owning the backstage of AI delivery. This acquisition of IO now brings OpenAI to the front of the house, embedding itself into how humans will summon, steer, and make sense of AI in their everyday lives. This isn't about building a smartphone rival. It's about defining a new category of ambient, context-aware AI hardware that doesn't just respond to inputs, but proactively interprets intent. In enterprise terms, that means we're hurtling toward a world where AI isn't just embedded in apps, it's embodied in objects. And OpenAI wants to write the blueprint for those objects. This ambition finds strong alignment with the Greyhound Distributed Enterprise Blueprint, a strategic framework developed by Greyhound Research for future-ready enterprises. As computing shifts closer to the point of decision, whether in space, on the factory floor, or in your palm, OpenAI's twin moves with Windsurf, and I've represented direct play to compress that stack. Windsurf's launch of the SWE-1 on-device model validates this trajectory, enabling real-time, local inference without cloud fallback. The smallest variant, SWE-1 Mini, is explicitly designed to run edge-like in live developer environments, delivering passive, high-speed predictions directly within the IDE. This marks a shift from dependency to autonomy, an architectural realignment that challenges not only Apple and Google in the consumer world, but also Microsoft and Apple in the enterprise device layer. The very nature of endpoint AI is changing from tool to teammate, from interface to infrastructure. It's no coincidence that chipmakers like Qualcomm are circling Intel's faltering foundry business, a sign that the battlefield is shifting from hyperscale compute to distributed, embedded intelligence. OpenAI's play could short-circuit incumbent advantage if it can deliver hardware that's as deployable as it is desirable. Greyhound field notes from global enterprise CIOs confirm a growing demand for AI-native edge devices, tools that blend inference with interaction, such as wearable copilots, ambient sensors, or intelligent whiteboard companions. These are not conventional form factors, but they demand enterprise-grade connectivity, compliance, and continuity, areas where OpenAI is still an underdog, and Ive's design precision alone won't suffice. Meanwhile, Greyhound CIO Pulse 2025 data shows that 58% of CIOs globally are now evaluating new human-AI interaction models beyond text and chat, gestures, wearables, voice, and spatial UX. These CIOs aren't just chasing novelty. They're looking to embed AI into frontline workflows from factory floors to field service and diagnostics. OpenAI's acquisition of this device startup is a play to stay relevant in those physical, high-stakes environments where ChatGPT as a browser tab simply won't cut it. But strategic alignment won't be easy. Ive's minimalist design sensibility may clash with the messy needs of enterprise deployment, port security, device provisioning, and MDM compliance. It also sets OpenAI on a collision course with Apple, whose own walled garden may reject or preempt any such AI device from achieving App Store or ecosystem-level integration. OpenAI is betting that by controlling both the intelligence and the interface, it can redefine expectations around privacy, usability, and personal AI agency. But whether it can scale this from a boutique artifact to an enterprise asset remains an open question. Greyhound's standpoint: real strategy reveals itself not in what was acquired, but in what it aims to rewire. With Windsurf, OpenAI claimed the model's memory. With Ive, it wants to own your moment of interaction. Together, these moves mark OpenAI's ambition to become not just the brain behind generative AI, but its voice, its face, and its form. We at Greyhound Research see this as a bold play to compress the full AI value chain into one vertically governed experience, turning interaction into infrastructure. Customer impact: when AI moves from API to object. For most enterprise buyers, OpenAI has long existed at a safe arm's length, accessible via API, largely consumed through Microsoft services and sandboxed within discrete SaaS integrations like Microsoft 365 Copilot or Azure OpenAI. But with its latest moves, first Windsurf, now IO, OpenAI is moving from a model vendor to a vertically integrated experience maker. And that changes the risk calculus entirely. Let's be clear, this is not a consumer hardware story in the iPhone sense, but it is a hardware story in the ambient AI sense. With Windsurf, OpenAI began operating its own inference infrastructure, signaling a desire to own the deployment runtime. With IO's device play, OpenAI now signals intent to own the interaction surface itself. That spells profound implications for enterprise control planes, procurement choices, and endpoint security policies. Greyhound field notes from global CIO engagements reflect a consistent worry. When a model vendor becomes a device vendor, it shifts the blast radius of failure. Enterprises aren't just evaluating the intelligence of the model anymore. They're being asked to trust the entire experience stack, from silicon to sensor. That means new due diligence cycles, expanded vendor risk profiles, and more direct exposure to OpenAI's operational and privacy guardrails. Meanwhile, early adopters we've advised across manufacturing and field service sectors are asking harder questions. Will these devices support enterprise identity management, Intra ID, Okta? Will they be remotely configurable under existing MDMs? Will they comply with HIPAA, PCI, or GDPR out of the box, or require bespoke wrappers? According to Greyhound CIO Pulse 2025, 71% of technology leaders are now flagging endpoint control for AI-native devices as an urgent governance priority. That number has doubled in just 8 months. The anxiety isn't hypothetical. It's shaped by prior burns, voice assistants that couldn't be muted, AR headsets that leak telemetry, and AI cameras that trigger compliance violations. This isn't a theoretical risk. Recent failures like the Humane AI Pin, a device that overpromised AI in your pocket utility but collapsed under the weight of thermal issues, battery life, and software inconsistency, serve as reminders that elegant form alone doesn't guarantee operational success. CIOs are right to question whether OpenAI, for all its model prowess, is ready to play in the gritty world of enterprise-grade deployment. OpenAI's track record here is thin. It has no history in physical supply chains, warranty management, or enterprise-grade support. And while Jony Ive's industrial design skills are world-class, minimalism and mass deployment rarely coexist without conflict. This raises material concerns for CTOs and CISOs. Can OpenAI harden these devices without losing their elegance? Will the forms serve function or frustrated? Even for CFOs, there's a ticking cost dynamic. If OpenAI starts bundling device access with ChatGPT team or enterprise SKUs, the economics of adoption shift dramatically. Device-based AI usage models could inflate SaaS bills, drive lock-in, and demand new categories of total cost of ownership analysis, including device refresh cycles, thermal management, and secure disposal. This shift could also force CIOs to revisit total cost of ownership frameworks, adding firmware compliance, endpoint orchestration, and zero-trust baseline adherence to the AI rollout budget. The broader implication is this: enterprise integration with OpenAI may no longer be purely digital. Buyers must now plan for physical touchpoints, real-world deployment logistics, and blended attack surfaces that cross from cloud to desk to pocket. What used to be a sandboxed API call might now involve firmware, fallback modes, and user ergonomics. Greyhound standpoint: every acquisition changes code, but the bigger shift is in who governs complexity. With this move, OpenAI transitions from being a model supplier to a stack strategist. Enterprises must now re-examine the full spectrum of exposure, because when the model, the medium, and the moment of interaction are all dictated by the same provider, the illusion of choice collapses unless CIOs intentionally reclaim architectural control. We at Greyhound Research believe this move demands a new class of governance playbooks, ones that span silicon, interface, and AI experience design. Market impact: how OpenAI's device play fractures the old AI guardrails. OpenAI's acquisition of I/O sends a clear message to the rest of the ecosystem. The AI arms race is no longer just about model weights and training tokens. It's about owning the last mile of human experience. This move doesn't just put Apple and Meta on alert. It challenges the very architecture of the AI economy as it stands today. Let's start with the obvious tension. Apple, long the gatekeeper of elegant interface design, now faces a credible threat. Not from Samsung, not from Google, but from an AI lab once considered academic and back-inbound. Ive's return to hardware, this time in service of a rival intelligence ecosystem, is more than symbolic. It suggests that the next battleground isn't apps, it's agents. Devices built not to run software, but to summon software on demand. Interfaces that are invisible, anticipatory, and deeply tied to cloud-hosted cognition. Greyhound field notes from global OEM and ISV partners reflect growing concern. Many hardware vendors, once dismissive of OpenAI's front-end ambitions, are now scrambling to understand where they fit in a world where the device and the model are co-designed. And for Microsoft, OpenAI's primary backer, this poses a delicate balancing act. Coexistence is one thing. Cannibalization is another. As OpenAI's stack grows vertically, it risks stepping on partner toes, even if unintentionally. What's more, Greyhound CIO Pulse 2025 shows that 45% of CIOs globally are re-evaluating AI vendor neutrality post-consolidation events, including not just OpenAI, but moves by Anthropic, Google DeepMind, and Mistral. The concern isn't simply cost or performance. It's platform lock-in via experience integration. When the AI provider also controls the endpoint, the ability to benchmark, switch, or isolate risk erodes. This raises regulatory red flags. If OpenAI, flush with funding, shielded by Microsoft's umbrella, and now inching into personal and professional hardware, starts dictating how AI is accessed and experienced, watchdogs from Brussels to Bengaluru will take notice. Data sovereignty, device-level telemetry, and cross-border compute flows become much harder to firewall when the entire interface stack is vertically aligned under one opaque governance structure. For competitors like Google and Amazon, the implications are equally sobering. Google's Pixel line and ambient AI ambitions now face a design-led rival with serious intent. Amazon's Alexa hardware strategy looks increasingly boxed in by stagnating adoption and failed refresh cycles. And for Meta, already navigating skepticism over its Ray-Ban and Quest experiments, OpenAI's elegant forum-first proposition may steal attention from its more fragmented metaverse narrative. But the tremor runs deeper than just consumer experience. OpenAI's investment in on-device intelligence, underscored by Windsurf's SWE1, signals a threat to Microsoft's Surface dominance and Apple's grip on premium enterprise devices. This isn't just form factor innovation. It's a compute model revolution. As noted in the Greyhound Distributed Enterprise Blueprint, a strategic framework developed by Greyhound Research for future-ready enterprises, the future lies in distributed embedded intelligence, where devices infer, act, and adapt without needing constant cloud calls. If OpenAI can ship AI-native hardware that supports low-latency tasks, identity-aware prompts, and secure offline operation, it won't just disrupt smartphones. It could elbow its way into the enterprise endpoint market, forcing a rethink of device standard across regulated sectors like healthcare, aviation, and government. Microsoft, while still OpenAI's strategic ally, may find itself watching a partner evolve into a platform rival, raising quiet tensions over stack control, device architecture, and user ownership. The collaborative runway may shorten as OpenAI asserts identity across the full value chain. This tension is no longer hypothetical. As outlined in Greyhound Research's AI deal shift analysis, Microsoft's recent renegotiation of its commercial arrangement with OpenAI signals a clear recalibration, positioning Microsoft less as OpenAI's gatekeeper and more as a parallel innovator. The shift grants OpenAI more structural independence, just as it begins building full-stack capabilities from inference to interface. With I/O and Windsurf now inside, OpenAI is no longer a lab under Microsoft's umbrella. It's a platform standing beside it, potentially in competition across devices, deployment, and developer ecosystems. Meanwhile, the market's most subtle shift may be cultural. This acquisition signals a return to craft in an industry that spent a decade chasing scale. It reintroduces human-led industrial design as a core differentiator in a field dominated by parameter counts and latency metrics. If OpenAI pulls this off, it will redraw the line between AI utility and AI affinity, winning not because it's faster, but because it's felt. Greyhound standpoint. This isn't just competitive posturing. It rewires what safe, standard, and neutral now mean in enterprise strategy. When AI labs start crafting objects, they don't just disrupt markets, they fracture trust. Every vendor must now confront a binary. Are you building for the ecosystem or trying to be the ecosystem? We at Greyhound Research believe this shift places CIOs and CXOs at a crossroads. Because if your AI provider owns the interface, what part of the experience do you really govern? Enterprise CXO Playbook points to ponder for the age of embodied AI. When your model vendor becomes a device vendor, who owns the failure mode? With OpenAI now designing both the inference backend and the physical interface, CIOs must reassess fault boundaries. A device malfunction or firmware exploit could now cascade into model-level risk, blurring accountability between software and hardware providers. Is your AI strategy cloud-anchored or experience-led? Most enterprise AI blueprints have focused on data pipelines, model governance, and API throughput. But with this move, OpenAI is shifting the axis to user interaction and design fidelity. CTOs must rethink how experience design fits into AI architecture, not as an afterthought, but as a first-class control surface. Can your enterprise handle physical AI endpoints without compromising digital governance? CISOs and compliance leaders need to prepare for AI-native devices that collect, transmit, and infer from real-world data, voice, biometrics, location, without prior visibility into their telemetry or update cadence. Device-level privacy and policy controls must now be part of your AI risk register. Does vertical integration by your AI vendor limit future bargaining power? CFOs must revisit total cost of ownership assumptions. If model access, device usage, and support are bundled into unified licensing, switching costs rise sharply. Procurement must push for modular contracts that allow service disaggregation, even when offered in slick packages. Are you designing AI experiences or inheriting someone else's defaults? With design now part of the AI value chain, enterprises risk outsourcing not just intelligence, but intent. Boards and CXOs must scrutinize the nudges, defaults, and affordances baked into AI interfaces, because once deployed at scale, those choices shape employee behavior, not just productivity. Can your enterprise afford to stay screen-first in an interface-less future? As generative interfaces evolve beyond keyboards and displays, toward gesture, voice, spatial, and ambient control, CIOs must evaluate whether legacy UI investments still serve frontline needs. A screen-bound mindset risks being leapfrogged by experience-native rivals who design for presence, not panels. Greyhound standpoint, from model to medium. The strategic reset we can't ignore. Enterprise trust doesn't collapse in a breach, it shifts in a buyout. OpenAI's acquisition of I/O, alongside its recent Windsurf integration, completes a quiet but seismic pivot, from a lab pushing tokens to a platform shaping touch. With Windsurf, OpenAI claimed the substrate. With Ive, it seizes the surface. This isn't about elegance. It's about endpoint influence. A model vendor that once sat behind Microsoft's curtains now wants to choreograph how intelligence appears, behaves, and embeds in our physical world. That redraws the enterprise perimeter, not just technically, but emotionally. Because when a medium is designed to feel like the message, the question becomes, whose message is it? For CIOs, this is no longer a conversation about inference benchmarks. It's about behavioral defaults, ambient control, and stack-level intimacy. When AI becomes a device, not just a dashboard, you're no longer integrating software. You're inviting a presence. At Greyhound Research, we believe this acquisition shifts the gravitational center of AI strategy, from compute power to experience power. For the distributed enterprise, this means rethinking not just model access, but model embodiment. Who builds it, who governs it, and who gets to touch the user last? Just as Tesla fused chip, model, and machine into one vertically controlled intelligence loop, OpenAI is now attempting the same, merging inference, interaction, and identity into a single orchestrated stack. The age of ambient AI has begun, not with a bang, but with a beautifully designed whisper. And enterprises must now decide. Will they design their own orchestration of intelligence or sleepwalk into someone else's interface? Analyst in focus, Sanchit Gogia. Sanchit Gogia, or SVG as he is popularly known, is a globally recognized technology analyst, innovation strategist, digital consultant, and board advisor. SVG is the chief analyst, founder and CEO of Greyhound Research, a global, award-winning technology research, advisory, consulting, and education firm. Greyhound Research works closely with global organizations, their CISOs, and the board of directors on technology and digital transformation decisions. SVG is also the founder and CEO of the House of Greyhound, an eclectic venture focusing on interdisciplinary innovation. Copyright policy. All content contained on the Greyhound Research website is protected by copyright law and may not be reproduced, distributed, transmitted, displayed, published, or broadcast without the prior written permission of Greyhound Research or, in the case of third-party materials, the prior written consent of the copyright owner of that content. You may not alter, delete, obscure, or conceal any trademark, copyright, or other notice appearing in any Greyhound Research content. We request our readers not to copy Greyhound Research content and not republish or redistribute them, in whole or partially, via emails or republishing them in any media, including websites, newsletters, or intranets. We understand that you may want to share this content with others, so we've added tools under each content piece that allow you to share the content. If you have any questions, please get in touch with our community relations team at connect@thofker.com.